Here we are today at Town Marine, and I got the beautiful Skeeter ZXE. We got over 20 hours on the boat, and it is due for service. So let's get in here. Karl's waiting for me. Let's go. Here with Karl Knaus today, and we are servicing the boat. We are 20-hour mark. And Karl, what's in a 20-hour, and why do you recommend a 20-hour service?
Yeah, so basically it's your first service that's involved with most manufacturers of outboards, including the Yamahas that we sell. We like to see it be done somewhere between 15 to 25 hours. The idea is we're getting our initial break-in oil out of the motor and the lower unit. We're also taking a look at our fuel water separator, which is normally mounted boat side as well. And then we're getting into just a general once-over on certain areas of boats that we see settle in, and we'll get into that more in a minute here.
Very good. And so you guys recommend this, and you know, is it on all your horsepower motors?
Yes, yeah, so all the motors basically are going to be right at 20 hours. It's just important to have that done around that period of time. We do recommend that you bring it into an authorized dealer to have that done, just so that way we're following the warranty procedure. The idea is that you'll have a record of that for your future sale, if you ever decide to sell your setup, or you ever have a issue with warranty, you have something to go back at, and same way with annual service too.
Very good.
That's the idea. So
we're going to get started. Follow along.
All right, so kind of getting into it here, we have a 20-foot bass boat due for its first service, obviously 250 SHO here. So one of the first things I like to do right now, this is in a towing position. So we have our steer stops in, we have our jack plate all the way down, and we're on our motor toter here. The idea is we're gonna come up here to the front. We're gonna raise this jack plate up in the air. That's gonna give us a lot more clearance from when we trim this motor up, where we don't bind our rigging tube up here. We'll be able to take our motor toter out, place that on the deck. Steer stops are gonna stay on this one, although they will be removed eventually for greasing. And then we can go ahead and get our lower unit squared away, get our prop removed here to check for fishing line, re-grease that prop shaft, and get into the top end. Okay, so one of the things you see a lot, we got the lower unit oil just draining right now. Well, two things. Number one, you always want to make sure you replace your fiber crush washers. We'll go over how to torque those up at the end of the video here when we put this back together. However, they should be replaced on every lower unit oil change. Those are going to be on your lower unit oil drain plugs. The other thing is, from factory, Yamaha does use green Loctite on these side pan covers. So you need to make sure you're using a 5mm Allen wrench. If you use the wrong size, there's a very good chance that they will strip out. Or if you use the ball end, there's a very good chance they'll strip out. So you do want to make sure that you mind your P's and Q's and use the correct tool, and it will go a lot better for you. So we have two Phillips head fasteners, one here and one here that are done from the inside. And take these, put them down with our other fasteners for a side chap. Open up this side latch, press this down, get a good hold on this, force forward with your backhand and come right off. And then take a little bit of oil and put on these, and a little bit more on these rubber grommets. So that way the next time you put this on, pops right on and off. Nice and easy. Close your latch as well so you don't hit your head on that if you bend down. All right, so we broke loose our engine oil drain right here. And then we're going to do a nice little trick to catch our oil. We have this nice bib that they give us. So we take a oil catch jug and a good sized funnel. We just loosen this up till it comes out. That's gonna go right down into the jug. Okay, so we're at the point now where we're replacing the oil filter. So obviously, as we all learned at some point, we want to lubricate this filter up to some degree so it doesn't get stuck fast for the next person who has to replace it. But more importantly, we're using a Yamaha oil filter, an N26 to be exact, which is what this motor calls for. As a matter of fact, everything from a VMAX 200 all the way up to a 450 takes this same oil filter. What I'm getting at though is we do see several white Sierra filters being used, as well as aftermarket Wix filters, things like that. There is a check valve built into this oil filter, and that is important that we run the required oil filter, especially during our warranty period, so that we can get the motor running at the proper oil pressure inside. If we fail to do that, that can lead to issues. So it's important to stay with your tried and true, right? So the alternative method to, of course, pulling the side chap off and the drain plug is you can extract the oil out too. There's really nothing wrong with this. The only thing that you do need to keep an eye on is the fact that you never will see the condition of your oil using an extractor until you go to actually dump it out of the extractor. So we do occasionally see motors come in where if you're extracting the oil, if there's an issue with the oil that could have been caught, oftentimes if you're pulling the chap, you'd see it, or with the extractor, you wouldn't. Once again, nothing wrong in doing this, just you might not see an issue that you might discover otherwise. Other thing that's important too is whether you extract it or you pull the chap, you're gonna get about the same amount of oil out of it. When you refill it, it is obviously very important on these motors to have that oil sitting right between the two dots on the stick when you're done. So we're ready to install our side chap back on our motor. So we put a little bit of lubrication on our rubber grommets as well as our pins. Make life easier. We're gonna make sure that this latch is opened up. We're gonna make sure that our well nuts, if you will, are firmly in our chap. And then we're gonna make sure it's clicked in properly in the back. First fasteners that we're gonna put in are gonna be our Phillips heads, which run down through the top. And then we'll put our side fasteners in to tie everything together. One long fastener and 3 shorts. These came out with some green Loctite. This motor was pretty nice to us. Some are not so nice, but we want to put our long one in this bottom corner on the outside. The other 3 are all the same length, so this will be number 2, number 3, and number 4 to finish it up. All right, so we're ready to refill our lower unit. We have 2 brand new fiber crush washers here from Yamaha. So I'm assuming most people are probably gonna know we fill it from the bottom, it bleeds out the top. However, what we have seen lately is some people over torquing these fiber washers. So these are a one-time use, meaning they crush down and seat once. And the idea is that you don't want to reuse them. You don't want to over tighten them. You also do not want to install them over top of the remnants of old washers. So when we're looking at our setup here, as this pressurized system fills up our gear case, when you see me install this top one here, we're going to put roughly 10 foot-pounds on this fastener just to seat it in and have it seal up. And then we'll do the same thing with our bottom screw. So we're bleeding out the top. Let that bleed clean. Choke that down. Take our top fastener, the one without the magnet goes in the top, the one with the magnet goes in the bottom. I go ahead and spin that into Tighten and just lightly seat that in just like that. The idea is that we want that fiber washer to crush in and do its job on a nice level surface. And we're going to unscrew our bottom. Should only lose that tiny little bit. Take our bottom screw, just like that. Once again, not over tightening the fasteners, making sure the remnants of the old washer is off for a nice level surface to seal up. All right, so we're pretty much ready to put our lower unit screens back on. Now we have this refilled. We have our plugs in. Now's a great time, especially if you run shallow water, to look over your intake screens. Oftentimes you got wood jammed into these. We might have chunks missing. Obviously that can cause cooling issues. So now's a good time to just look them over, make sure they're in good condition. Also make sure we have a brass lock nut that's in there. Now's a great time to put a little bit of grease on that, just so that way, especially if you're running brackish water down on the flats, Potomac, things like that, you know, Delaware, this actually will come out instead of spinning inside here and you know, save the part. So we're ready to refill this. We do have instructions on how much oil to put in here, but the key is you have to remember we can't always get all the engine oil out of the engine. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by putting exactly 6 quarts of oil into this motor, and then we will observe the level and add from there. Okay, so while we wait on that oil level to settle out, there's 25 hours on this engine, which, as we talked about briefly before, 15 to 25 hours, plenty acceptable range to do that first service. It does not have to be dead nuts on 20. That's plenty fine to be a little bit outside. But we don't want this to be at 8 hours or 35 either. We know there's 25 hours because we have a nice little gauge in this boat that taps into the motor to tell us that. So what we're going to do is we're going to scribe in 25 hours on this oil filter. And we'll also put today's date on there, just so we have a record of when it was serviced and how many hours are on it, and there's no physical way to undo that like you would have with potentially a Sharpie or, you know, maybe a paint pen, something like that. Okay, so we just pulled the stick on this. Uh-oh, no oil. Sometimes it airlocks in these tubes. You can see we're just a touch high, but you got to remember we have not run this engine, so that oil filter is going to have some oil in it too. So that'll probably be right on the money when we go to put this back together here. All right, so we're just preparing the new fuel water separator to go on here. And Nick brought up a really good point, just talking about locations. So this should always be done at your 20-hour service. This is a 10 micron element inside this filter here. The idea is that if you have water, moisture, contaminants in your fuel, they're going to get spun out inside this large capacity filter before they go inside of your motor into this subsequent, as we call it, the cup filter or the VST filter that's in behind that intake there. The idea is that this is a lesser expensive filter that's easier to change. It is something that is easily done as opposed to getting inside that motor and doing the service there every time. This filter on newer ZXRs and FXRs is over right here on the side, very easy to get to. On about 2020 and previous on most Skeeters, it's going to be located underneath your rigging tube back here against the transom. Other boats obviously going to vary, pontoons, stuff like that, be right in the splash well or right underneath the back couch. Either way, it will be in line with your fuel system. So I have a catch can underneath here. Nick did inform me the boat was run as recently as Monday. So the fuel is not going to gush out necessarily, but we're going to catch it here. So try to minimize it going down inside the boat. And then I've got a lubricated O-ring on my new filter that I have going up in here. Now, I've never had an issue with pre-filling these. Other people like to. That's completely up to you. Obviously, if you don't pre-fill it, you may have to pump the primer ball a few times, key on and off a few times. Typically, it resolves itself pretty quick. Other people will want to fill this up for a little bit less of an interruption there. Completely up to you. Nick, why don't you show what we did down here with our motor? We actually put a block of wood down, lowered our jack plate, and we put just a little bit of pressure there. What it does is that takes the weight off the back of the jack plate and allows us to tighten things back up. You know, at initial service, now Nick's been keeping an eye on his transom hardware as he should, running some rough water, stuff like that down in the bay where he reuses the boat. But you know, at the initial service, that's an excellent time to go over all your jack plate hardware, your Raptor or power pole bracket hardware back here. Well, that typically is going to settle in at least a little bit there. And then we always recommend checking that at least twice a year thereafter for the average customer. If you're going to run the St. Lawrence, Champlain, Erie, Ontario, the Bay, recommend doing it, you know, at least once a month. It's very hard on hardware. Also, in addition to that, rub rail screws. Every single boat out there, regardless of manufacturer, where the top cap meets the hull, it is screwed together. It is a good idea to go across those. If you see some bumps in your rub rail, that is a sign that you're running rough water and you need to tighten up your fasteners, put Loctite on them. You need to address that, stay up on it. One other quick tip here are bolts that go through the transom. Now these can be tricky because you need a second person. If you're mindful though, you can take like a ratchet wrench instead of a socket, which would not allow you to see if the bolt is spinning. So we're gonna start at the ones that are above the water line here. So if I take this and I tighten this up, which that is nice and tight there. Good job, Nick, staying after your stuff. I wanna just make sure that bolt doesn't spin. If that bolt starts to spin, we're gonna need a helper on the inside. We also don't wanna break the seal that goes around the bolt by just spinning the nut on the outside and leaving the bolt stationary. We wouldn't do that. However, if we start to spin this rapidly, like with an impact gun or something like that, there's a potential to cause a leak from breaking that seal around that bolt. Okay, a lot of times we see there's this clear sticker that goes over this ruler for your jack plate and the fastener goes over top. Anytime you're dealing with this fastener, you need to make sure that this washer and fastener do not move, only the nut on the backside. So we're just gonna get a nice good grip on that. Make sure that's tight, because if that moves, we'll get a little ripple there and we'll see water get underneath there and ruin that sticker real quick. Nick brought up a great point. Running rough water, one of the symptoms of that is sometimes the hydraulic jack plate gauge will fail to read on these Atlas plates. Let me show you right where that comes from here. It's from this L bracket here. So this is what reads. Sometimes that just needs a little of alignment help right there. So what we do is, we line that up. I'm gonna show the gauge up there. So right now that reads. Sometimes if that gets a little out of whack, it'll read either high or it'll read 0. So when that happens, we just need to line that back up so that way we read a number. And then we want to go ahead and tighten it up there and run it through the range of motion just to verify that. We're going to go ahead and reinstall our prop. Now this is a T3 series stainless prop. So we have a one-piece thrust washer that is then going to seat inside of this prop when it is tightened down. Now we'll put that on. A lot of people may be asking, why aren't you greasing that? Well, as a matter of fact, the only part of a prop shaft that should be greased are the splines and the threads. The actual shoulder of the prop shaft and the thrust washer should not be greased. And it's directly from Yamaha. Other manufacturers are the same way. Now we know we did it right because we can see just enough spline to catch our spacer. Just like that. Gonna be very careful hand tightening this prop to start. We'll obviously finish this with a block here. Block will work just fine. So we're gonna go to 100 foot-pounds, and then we're gonna go to the next slot to put our cotter through. one of the best ways to know, did we put the washers on the right way? Do we have the correct washers? We should see a couple threads here, and this cotter should actually be doing something inside here. If you go to put your cotter pin in and it's not even touching the grooves of your castle nut, you most likely either have a very worn out washer, you have the wrong washers, or something is amiss that you need to call your dealer and kind of send us some pictures, your dealer some pictures, and you can see what you're working with there. Thrust washers do wear. So as this thrust washer wears, this prop will get closer to the lower unit. We need to keep an eye on that. When it gets thin, we need to replace it or both of them in the case of a older style prop. And then to finish this off, I'm going to put a light bend on our cotter pin. We do not need to kill the pin like most people think, because if we do, we will have a very difficult time removing that. In the event we need to change our prop. So now we've changed our fuel water separator, we've changed our oil filter, we put new oil in the motor, new lower unit oil, new crush washers, and we greased our prop shaft and inspected that for fishing line. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this out. We're going to back flush it first, and then we're going to test run it here on a hose to make sure that we're good to go. Okay, so what we're actually gonna do here is something Yamaha recommends twice a year or every 50 hours, whichever comes first. And this is called back flushing. And what this does is this cleans the internal passageways of the motor out from any type of sand, silt, algal deposits. A lot of customers in upstate New York get that fall turnover. That builds up in these motors too. Anywhere that really gets rocking and rolling, like Champlain, that pea gravel kind of gets stuck up in these motors. So we want to go ahead and put that on there. And keyword, without running the motor, we're going to run fresh water through this engine. With that trimmed all the way down. If you have enough water pressure, you should see a healthy stream coming out. If you're on well water or you're kind of tapped down a little bit on your flow rate, you might not see as strong of a stream come out of here. If you don't see any stream coming out of here, it means you have a blockage that you need to clear. Small zip tie, small drill bit, a little bit of compressed air, all great tricks to clear those blockages out. If you have debris, normally take your hand like this, you'll be able to see debris in there. This having 25 hours being flushed a couple times, shouldn't see anything come out of it. So now we back flush the motor. Is that a good habit? We're gonna make sure we reinstall the flush attachment here. Sometimes it's good to put a little bit of Vaseline or grease on your O-ring to allow that to rotate and slide so it doesn't leak out of here. Especially if you back flush a lot, or have a spare O-ring, just same as a garden hose to put in there to help that seal up. We have our Yamaha motor flusher down here on the bottom, as they call it. You have a couple choices with a motor like this to run it out of the water. You can purchase the Yamaha low water pickup flusher to be able to jam water up into the engine. You can take the engine and put it in a barrel that's cut off about yay high. Put it in there. As long as you don't put it in gear, you can idle that. That's a great way of getting water up into it. They also sell what they call a flush bag, which attaches up around the motor. You do have to take your prop off to put that in the flush bag, and only idle it, of course. Can't put it in gear, but that also will get water up around your prop so that you can run it there. So we're gonna put some water to this. We're gonna run it, observe some functions. One of the things we do too is we make sure our kill switch is working. and make sure that the motor is not going to start in gear either direction. And as a last test, we make sure that that buzzer is indeed going to buzz and let us know that we're overheating or if we potentially have an issue as part of our check. Make sure our key is off. Go ahead and get this greased up and finalized. Now, what I'm looking for here is belt dust. It's excessive. So as you see, you have some dust right here from this thing going around in and through. Just something we want to keep an eye on. Okay, so you grease your motor, you get a little grease on your fingertip. What you want to do with that grease, you just want to take that, put that right on the tips of these rams here. So oftentimes with Yamahas and other brands too, you hear an actual like almost clunking noise as you trim these down. What that actually is there's a slide plate that's right here. And if that slide plate is not sliding, if it's chirping along the way, you're going to hear that chirping noise. So now with that grease on the tips of those rams, it's going to be very quiet as it slides along through there. If they're dry, which can happen from the grease drying and getting wiped away, once again you hear that clunking, that chipping noise. So it's a very easy fix. So you need is a little bit of grease on the tips of those. Make sure you're careful putting your transom saver on and off so you don't knock the grease off of it, of course. Steer stops, everyone calls them something different. You can spend a bunch of money, you can get the ones they come with, which are fine too. One of the biggest tips I can give you on these particular types, number one, a nice hack, if you will. You drill like a 5/32 hole through each of these. You tie a piece of 20-pound fluoro between them. One flies off, you don't lose them both, right? They're always together, and also in the boat too when you go to grab them. The other thing I've seen that's really nice too, you always want to put these in here on a 90-degree angle to here, either this way, or my favorite is actually down with the opening up. Then when the motor tries to shift side to side, they don't get shoved off like I see most people put them on this way, when they get slid over the end with a little bit of force. So once again, just like that, we'll come over here, do the same thing. Sometimes it helps just to take our motor, give it a little bit of persuasion, just so it clicks in firmly. Just like that, from the bottom, opening to the sky.
So that's all she wrote there, Carl.
Yep.
You did another stellar job every time I come here. They do a great job. So we did the 20-hour service. My question is for everybody watching, how often should they be servicing then after?
Yep, so get your 20-hour service done, hopefully, midsummer if you buy the boat in the spring or somewhere thereafter. After that, your annual service should be done always once a year. So the idea is that we want to make sure that our top and engine oil is being changed, lower unit oil is being changed, and our fuel water separator. If your 20-hour service just so happens to fall at the end of the season, maybe you only need your lower unit oil done then, just to winterize it for the season, okay?
Very good. And then here's another question, because you and I were talking, and we did a lot of stuff here. What else should, boat owners be looking at other than what we went over today?
Yeah, so I think we can both agree the trailer is probably the most overlooked item, as is the hardware on the back of the boat around the jack plate and brackets and things like that. It's where the most vibration is by far. So, we always recommend going over all your jack plate hardener fasteners. You want to make sure that's nice and tight there. Just with a good 3/4 inch wrench and a ratchet. Go over your rubber rail screws occasionally. You don't want to overlook that. You also want to go over and inspect your seals on your trailer. Make sure your trailer air pressure is aired up. Try and do it once a month. Once a month is better than none, for air pressure. Save your tires and keep your trailer riding nice. So, yep.
Very good. Well, another success. Everyone, I'm telling you, if you want to get the most out of your investment, you got to take care of it. You got to, right, Carl?
Yep.
And that's what it's all about. So years of fun on the water is, you know, putting in your investment. So hope you enjoyed this video. I know we did.
Yeah.
And till next time.